Commissioner Jordan, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great, thanks.
So first thing, I'd like to request to participate remotely for medical reasons, if that's possible. Hey, Josh.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's all yours.
Thank you very much.
So now I'll ask that you announce whether there's anybody under 18 in the room with you and make sure to keep your video on.
Understood. There is, for that matter.
A really cute doggy's in the room, I bet.
She went outside for a moment. Oh my goodness. She is adorable. Of October 10th, 2024. It is 4:01. Let's get this meeting started. Can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Jordan?
Present.
Commissioner Betancourt?
Here.
Commissioner Casey?
Here.
Commissioner Curro?
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Here.
All 5 present.
Thank you very much. The Pledge of Allegiance, Commissioner Curro, can you please start us off?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. May I have a approval for the affidavit of posting of the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Gonzalez, and who was the second? Commissioner Curro?
No, Casey.
Casey, sorry.
It's okay.
I can't see you.
And then we do roll call because of
And then a roll call, please.
Commissioner, Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Casey?
yes.
Commissioner Betancourt?
Yes.
Commissioner Curro?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
5-0.
Thank you. And at this point, I would like to ask if there is anybody who has any public comment, either in Zoom or in chambers. It's an opportunity for members of the public to speak on items that are not on the agenda. Do we have anybody?
In chambers and no one on Zoom.
Thank you very much. Consent agenda items, none. Business items, public hearing items, none. Business items, general business, none. Hearing items. Approval of the minutes of September 12th, 2024 regular meeting.
So
Has
moved.
everybody? Thank you.
I'll second. Angela.
Thank you. First by Commissioner Gonzalez, seconded by Commissioner Curro. All in favor? Roll call, please.
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Betancourt?
Yes.
Commissioner Casey?
Yes.
Commissioner Curro?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
5-0.
Thank you. And now for the discussion and proposed edits to the policies and guidelines for San Benito LAFCO. I will now turn it over to our EO, Jennifer.
Okay, I'm just going to share it on the screen here in Zoom.
Was it page 22? Is that what
Last month it was 22, but it looks like it's a different, whatever's on the document for this agenda, it looks like it's a little bit different from the one that was on the last month agenda. Is it the same actual document?
Same document, it's page 14.
Oh, 14, sorry. Okay.
Page 14 is where we left off, and so we'll do page 14 through page 23 is what we're going to be working on this go around. What happened? There we go.
need than when I looked at the agenda packet for this month, and I couldn't find my last month. But we stopped at 22, but it's 2.3 is where we were starting.
2.3, right. It's policies and criteria for city annexation. So we'll start there. For this item, so we've only got the 9 pages to make it through. After that, there's a list of other types of policies that probably should be included in this packet. So that's what we'll be discussing at the next meeting. But hopefully these 9 pages don't take us far too long. So we had left off previously, we were going through the policies for, just reminding myself where we were at. I thought it was for general principles for evaluating proposals. And then the factors to be included, we had gone through. That was all 2.2. And then we were ending on 2.3, which was specific to city, criterias for city annexations. I don't know that these are necessarily particularly different or distinct from the general policies that we had above, with the exception of I had added specifically this 2.3.2 as a need for there to be adopted pre-zoning consistent with the city general plan prior to the application. There are 3 items that are crossed out: 2.3.4, 2.3.5, 2.3.7, and a portion of it was 2.8, but is now 2.3.6. All because these items were either already required, such as the annexation request, that's already required. The other one is already general principle, so the boundary of the proposed annexation must be definite and certain and must conform to lines of assessment. We've already included that in our general factors to be considered for other applications, so no reason to reiterate it as a specific requirement. Let's see here. The same goes for the next one. It's already the one, the city must initiate action to withdraw from special districts for the territory to be annexed. That's already in 2.2.9 above, so no reason to reiterate it. The 2.3.7, as I mentioned, initiation of an application is already well documented in the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act, so there's no reason to restate it here. And then that 2.3.8, now 0.6. There's a whole section about the submittal of the plan for providing services shall include a resolution of the legislative body of the local jurisdiction with findings that the plan for services reflects existing conditions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These are all beyond the legal requirement, and frankly, the adequacy of the plan for services should be determined by LAFCO, not by the applicant, is my position on the item. So I'm recommending that it be removed. Let me see if I can attach the picture so you can see. Now, removing it would mean that it's going against a resolution that was previously adopted by LAFCO. That's resolution 95-03. So might be an item for discussion by the commission.
Which section are you on right now?
Section 2.3, and it's the bottom of page 14.
Oh, okay, got it. So it's on actually, part of it's on 15?
Yes.
Okay, I got it. No, that's okay, I can follow in here. Yeah, I just lost her on my page. Thank you.
It's a lot. So I don't know if you have any questions about that item.
So, what was the resolution number again?
95-03. Definitely, if you have questions as we're going through or comments, I would say bring it up at that time. This is, the opportunity for discussion before we move ahead in the policies.
And if you do, just throw them out there because I can't see Chambers any longer.
Um, 95-03.
Really close.
And it was, let me see if it's still in the back of the policies.
Yeah, because we want to see what we're, striking. Okay, thank you.
So it was policy. Mm. So we're already, removing the urban service area section that affects this resolution. Policy 3 that's in the resolution is already, like I mentioned, part of the law. And actually,
Jennifer, I got a question on
Mhm.
section 2.3102.
2.3, okay. Just one.
LAFCO will deny city annexation that clearly induce, facilitate, or lead to the conversion of prime ag lands when there is opportunity for amending or annexation of non-prime ag land. My concern here is, why is it even in here? And I'm going to use an example, is the high school is going to plant their new high school, if it gets approved, right in the middle of prime ag land. And if we do not have any say in that, what's the use to even have that in there? Because we can't stop it, from what I understand. And that's one of the main things that we are commissioned to do is to protect prime ag land?
So, I do recommend that there be a section specific to agricultural policies. So I think that discussion should happen when we establish agricultural policies at our next meeting. When we go through that's in the list. Like I mentioned, there's certain policies that have not been included in the policies to date. And I think that they should be added. And there's a list, I think on page 22 or 23 of the ones that I think need to be added, that I will work towards creating some language and including for our next meeting. But there are a couple of ways that LAFCO can protect agricultural land as part of development. One is through the annexation process. So if the territory is going to be annexed by the city, they have to come to LAFCO and apply, and LAFCO can make that decision based on these factors, including whether it's prime ag or not. That's one of the factors. So that is one
Also-
way that LAFCO can meet its goal or aim.
In reading this, we're not supposed to create islands. And something like that, I'm using that. I'm not against a new high school. I sit up here as a LAFCO member, and we're commissioned to protect open space, not create islands, and protect prime ag land.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's very difficult, not so difficult for me, but for the elected folks that are on our commission,
Mm-hmm.
boy, that puts them in a big problem.
Yeah, let me interrupt here too. I understand that they're exempt. I don't know where to go find the exemption that they can do that, as well as I understand that they're exempt from the one-on-one, as well as replacing ag with, at another place, the way we have it, 1 acre per 1 acre. So how do we as LAFCO, because I never heard of this, so how do we educate ourselves? Where do we go find this information that schools are exempt and they can build on prime ag land? And as LAFCO and as, supervisors and city council members, whether they want to annex it into the city, and then they're going to come to us and they're like, well, it's prime ag land, we're not going to annex you, but yet they're wanting it, but there's nothing that we can do about it. How do we know that there's nothing we can do about it?
Which brought me to exactly where I was going to go, which is when this comes back at the next meeting, can we specifically have a conversation about schools and the authorities of schools so that we can learn that very question? Where do they get the exemption rights? And I know there's a process or something that they do. I've sat down with several people talking about this, and I just want to know, is it accurate? And is it something that as LAFCO commissioners we need to be fully aware of, so either we can say we're hanging our hat on this, not what's being said? That's where I'd like to be.
Right. And I like that idea because I don't want to speak off the cuff and without all of the facts in front of me. But I can say that there are only 2 times that LAFCO becomes involved in this kind of development. One is if it comes to LAFCO for an annexation, then we would consider our policies and the law, whatever it may be, to determine whether that could be annexed. And then the other item is whether or not the city asks to provide out-of-area services. So if they decide to offer that to the school, then that application would have to come to LAFCO as well. And it is another opportunity for LAFCO to be involved and to make consideration and include that it's on prime ag lands. So those are the 2 options when LAFCO will have a say. if they don't require out-of-area services and they're not intending to be annexed into the city, then LAFCO will not be considering it.
Can I add one more thing to it? They've already purchased the property. The state dictates if it's prime ag land. And there's a whole process in that. So if it's deemed no longer prime ag land, we don't have any say in that because that happens at the state level. If that could be added to the conversation to help us understand that, because we kind of need to know where our role starts and stops. And I think that that's going to be where this goes. In my opinion, that just hearing how prime ag land is no longer prime ag land and how that can be a very political item at the state level, it will be very interesting to see what happens. But if that could be included, I think that would be helpful.
Because that property or those acres, then that sets precedence for the next door neighbor. And we're talking about surrounding hundreds of acres that are going to be affected by that. So we need to learn more about what is the process, what is legal, and where does that sit? Because they are going to come to LAFCO. If they stay in the county, they're going to have water and sewer. So they're going to come here, whether they annex or not.
I think that's a great discussion to be had just before we discuss agricultural policies as a commission. So we'll put it on the agenda to go that, and then we'll have a discussion specific to agricultural policies.
And what teeth can we put in it to protect prime ag land and open space?
I think I'll have to
Apparently
come up with a list when I do the presentation.
not. Okay,
So
keep
it's
that
comprehensive.
in the back of your mind when you proceed.
And do a little research too. Like I said, I don't want to speak off the cuff without having all of the information.
Because to me, these rules are worthless. No teeth.
Well, I'm gonna respectfully disagree
Okay.
because I think we're dealing with a state entity, which is a school district, as opposed to a private body. And that's where I think the teeth problem happens. So I'm really looking forward to learning and making sure that we understand, because where my research has taken me, it's like, this isn't like everybody can get away with this. It's only because it's a school district. And so that would be,
My comment to Angela's is, yes, it's, so we exempt the state, guess what happens?
no, we're not
All the
exempting
way
the state.
around
There's state exemptions that are already out there.
Right.
We're not exempting it. So
Oh,
we're going to follow whatever the law is. So I don't want to go too far into this because I know it's going to be a whole new future agenda item, but I think there's so many facets to this that we need to dive into that it could be a meeting almost all by itself.
right.
And I'm sure we'll have some guests that would attend that meeting.
I'm sure we will. Back to 95-03 here. I have to say that most of this is just reiteration of law and or the general factors that we've already agreed upon that would be considered for applications. And then this very last one has to do with egg lands, but we'll be compiling egg-specific policies at the next meeting. So I really think that there's no need to be concerned about it. And in fact, the reference to this resolution that's in that section makes requirements for a plan for service, that it be approved by a resolution of the agency that's submitting it, and that agency claimed that it's adequate and that it was compiled in the last 6 months and various other things. That is not included in this resolution. So, it's purely policy that's included in the policies above. So that was on the end of page 14. And like I said, LAFCO is really the one that should be determining whether that plan for services is adequate when it considers the application. That is not up to the applicant.
It sounds like we're gonna agree with you, so let's go ahead
Okay.
and let you move on.
Yeah, I just gotta get back now.
Right.
I'm very excited for these policies to be adopted because the formatting is driving me crazy, so I really want
Okay,
to start
what page
fresh.
are you on?
On the bottom of
Jennifer?
14,
Huh?
the bottom of page 14. Top of 15, sorry.
Yeah, top of 15. Okay, so we're gonna move from the strike through of the last half of what is now 2.3.6. And that is okay. Removing references to the resolutions that we had agreed to last time. What is now numbered as 2.3.8. It requires notice to property owners of the affected territory to be by return receipt. I think that's beyond legal requirements and could be cost prohibitive if we're doing that for all addresses within an affected territory or all addresses within the 300 feet of an affected territory. So that would be quite a few mailers to go out by return receipt. So I'm proposing to remove that.
I think you can go on unless we stop you.
Let's see here, this is just 2.3.9, removal of reference to obvious law and policy, and once again, resolutions. Anything else here? What page is this? At the bottom of 15, section 2.4.12 now. It's not a significant change, but it's something that requires clarity, is this difference between the idea of a service area versus the city limits. Service area and city limits are very different things, so what we want to speak to here is city limits, so proposing a change of that terminology. And then we're on to 2.4. Look at us fly.
Sorry, can we go back to 2.4.124 is what I have here? The very last section on page 15. So when the city with substantial supply of vacant land within its limits applies for an expansion, LAFCO will require the explanation of why the expansion is necessary, why infill development is not undertaken first, and how to orderly, effectively growth pattern. Now, how does LAFCO cannot force those property owners within the city limits with those islands to develop. So how do we do that? How can we effectively support and or deny the expansion when even this, LAFCO has no jurisdiction over telling the property owner, much less the city. How does that work?
So it's different from islands because islands are still an unincorporated area. But the area within the city limits is what they're talking about. So this is to ensure that infill is given a higher priority than just expansive
Okay, well,
green
even
development.
with infill, because maybe I used islands as a bad example.
Mhm.
I'm still, we still have property that the property owner is not developing. They don't want to develop. So, and the city wants to expand it. How can we deny the city, how can LAFCO deny when they can't force?
Yeah, they would just have to explain why, and it says here, why the infill development is not undertaken first. So that would be just the case of, they have to explain why infill is not occurring.
So
And it
that's
may be-
a good enough answer for LAFCO is, we can't force the property owner, so we're asking for an expansion.
That would be up to the commission to decide if that's an adequate explanation.
I know an example exactly like that in San Jose, in South San Jose, off of Highway 85. The property owner has sat on that property for years, refuses to allow the city to utilize the land because he refuses to develop. And so I believe he's had to be contacted by, whenever there's been an annexation going out, he has had to explain and has a letter on file with LAFCO that I will not develop my property because I have property rights, and that's why it hasn't been developed. I mean, this guy has been sitting on that property for, decades, probably longer.
Oh, Jennifer, another example here is the bypass, that round part right there. We annexed, I believe it was 118 acres into the city. And certain people were saying that oh my God, there's going to be 800 homes. Wasn't our problem. It would be up to the city, which I believe they are putting a small subdivision in there now. I don't know how many, but there would probably be some of those landowners, like Angela said, they don't want to. And we can't force them to do it, neither can this city, right?
Right, it really can't. But at the same time, I think the intent here is to ensure that there is a plan in place that tries to focus development in what the city has prior to annexing greenfield areas for new development, right? And so that's the intent. There's always going to be exceptions. There are going to be people that do not want to develop their property that's inside the city limits.
And I
that's gonna
think
be
it comes
understood.
down to, did you ask? Did you ask that vacant property owner if you could do it there instead of expanding? And that's how I think the intent is, so that we're not just expanding because we're expanding because of that property. We're looking at vacant land and saying, well, instead of expanding and doing that, have you talked to this vacant land that's inside the city?
One way it protects LAFCO is even that landowner doesn't create any islands, right?
If it's in the city limits, yeah, no, it's already part of it. It's
Right.
not an island. The other intent as well is to ensure that a city is not just jumping on whatever development bandwagon comes to town. So if they've already made plans for a specific area and a new development comes in that's somewhere else, they're like, oh, well, we'll annex that too. Well, stop, hold on. You've already got all of this in your sphere of influence that you plan to annex. You can't possibly intend to use all of this area in the next whatever time frame you're looking at, 10, 20 years. So it needs to be reconsidered. So that's the idea, is that you can't just about face and then choose whatever is coming around. That there's thought and purpose and plan in place before the city is attempting to annex. Okay. Section 2.4. I think that a majority of these items that are under here as criteria for annexations to special districts could just be incorporated into the general policies above. And in fact, many of them already are. I was able to automatically remove, 2.4.4, that's already above. And many of these are said in some way previously, but with only having these 3 policies here, we could in some way move them into the general policies. Because many of them are applicable to cities as well. Logical and reasonable expansion to the annexing agency, right? Not just district, it applies to city as well. Consider the general plans of neighboring governmental entities. Not represent an attempt to annex only revenue producing property. And these are all very general that could be incorporated above. So I propose that 2.4 could be removed entirely and these policies just moved above into general factors.
My only comment is making sure that it's still extremely clear about the process that development should not start happening before I'm looking at examples of things that have happened here that we should never do again, and making sure that we don't lose the meat of what the purpose of this is by removing it. So I'm fine with your recommendation as long as we have it documented that there are certain things we cannot do. We just don't have the power to do it. Learn from our mistakes.
Yeah, and I think just moving it above as more general policies as opposed to specific just to the special districts, like I said, doesn't change any of that.
Which actually, in hindsight, would give it more meat because it's not just special districts. Because if you're not a special district, these rules still apply.
Right. So for
Everybody. Yeah, okay, I'm with you.
I mean, same goes for 2.4.3. The resulting boundary configuration must not produce areas that are difficult to serve. Seems to apply equally to cities and special districts. Okay, now we'll make that move up to the general factors for all applications then. Which means that section 2.5 will become 2.4, but we'll call it 2.5 for the time being. These are criteria for evaluation of proposed incorporations of municipalities. Now, I don't know how seriously we need to delve into these, just because do you anticipate that an area is going to want to incorporate into a city beyond the 2 cities that are there?
The conversation has happened before.
Good. Well, you've got policies in place for it, should it happen.
I think we need it because if we don't, then
Oh, yeah,
we're
of
addressing
course.
something we don't have in our policies, so.
Well, maybe we should leave it there just in case.
So I
don't think we should.
included we can leave it there. I don't propose removing it. I'm just saying that I don't know that how often this will occur. I did add content regarding what type of information needs to be included in the feasibility study of any proposed incorporation, what content and analysis needs to be included. And this is fairly standard for what needs to be in any feasibility study. And it's in quite good detail. And the requirements that the proposed incorporation must meet. That's 2.5.2. Not proposing any changes to that, and then shifting everything down. Removing 2.5.5 because it's already in the general factors to be considered. And that's it. Any questions about those items? And then 2.6 is criteria for the evaluation of proposed formations of special districts. I didn't have a whole lot of content to add in here, so it remains relatively unchanged, except for the removal of one that's already in our general factors to be considered about the boundaries.
Jennifer,
Mm-hmm.
on evaluation of proposal formation of special districts, is that what we're trying to do now? Is part of this?
On the policies
Yeah.
right now? Yes, we're on page 19. So section 2.6.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but isn't that what we're trying to do, is get the special districts to come aboard about?
No,
Or is this different?
Yeah,
this is like the fire district.
Oh, okay,
If
got
that
it.
you see where we're going, it's a special district that may be formed with new services.
Got
But
it.
I see where you were going. I no.
Mhm.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay, so all criteria for formation of special districts. Like I said, very few changes to that section. So section 2.7, criteria for formation of county service areas. I think that these can be rolled into the above 2.6, the criteria for formation of special districts. We can make, if there's anything specific to county service areas, just make a subsection about county service areas. But quite a bit of these are already the same. So,
I totally agree with that because I do not see in any near future a CSA being created in this county.
good.
We can't deal with what we have, so I have no problem making it not such a highlighted thing and move it into special districts and.
Okay, so I'll collapse it into the section above. And whatever is the
Angela.
same, I'll eliminate.
Yes, Commissioner.
And if there's a bigger subdivision, or even the city, you don't wanna, the whole public have to pay for their, roads or streets or their parks.
We've gone to
Correct. So how do you-
CFDs and not CSAs. So the
what do you-
CSAs, the community, or the county service areas, the policy in the county right now is any future development will be community facility districts, not
Got it.
service areas. So I think the board is quite unanimous on that, and so is staff, that we have to get out of the CSA business. It was not a good business to be in. It doesn't help us, it doesn't help the residents, and it's a heck of a lot of work to manage.
Yeah.
They're like
Puts a
little mini
big burden
cities.
on the county.
Yeah.
So So why not eliminate?
We're gonna eliminate and consolidate it into the special district section.
Got it.
Yep. Did I get that right? Okay, I'm getting a nod.
As a subset of 2.6.
Yeah, correct. Okay, so we're on to what is currently 2.8, but it sounds like will now be 2.6. Criteria for the sphere of influence, it says and urban service areas. Based on our last discussion, we talked about removing reference to urban service areas and the adoption or use of urban service areas. So I would, regardless of whether we actually entirely go away from urban service areas, I think that a whole different section should be devoted to urban service areas if the commission decides to maintain them. I don't think it should be grouped with sphere of influence. I think that leaves too much room for misunderstanding between the two. Let's see here. I think this section is where I made quite a few additions for specificity purposes. The first one is really just a little bit of background on what a sphere of influence is and its intent. And then 2.8.2 is regarding the state mandate about municipal service reviews and sphere of influences.
So would you explain an urban service area? Well, no. A sphere over annexation of a sphere of the city. Okay, is there a difference between the city and the urban service area?
Urban service area is very vague in my mind. There's brief reference to it, but it's supposed to be smaller than a sphere of influence, and its use is very unclear. So that's why I'm recommending that we don't use urban service area. I think just sticking with city limits and sphere of influence is all that's necessary. And the sphere of influence, it really just means the plan for the probable physical boundaries of a local agency.
Well, that's got us in a lot of trouble.
Sphere of influence shouldn't, it's
No, I'm talking about an urban service
our urban
area.
service area. Yes, I agree.
Yeah,
I
strike.
think, and that's the reason that I'm recommending just doing away with it. Let's see here.
Well, you gave us a lot of detail under 2.8, which will be 2.7, regarding the criteria for the sphere of influence. So anything that may have been struck will be covered in this section here, so thank you for that.
Yeah, I think ensuring that you have those criteria by which to determine what a sphere of influence should do is very important. So yeah, there's definitely a little bit more meat here in 2.8. 2.8.4 I think is really important, describing what the sphere of influence will do or how it will be used. By it will effectively relate needed public services to the population. It will protect the remaining prime agricultural land. It will promote the annexation and development of the unincorporated pockets of land or islands that are substantially surrounded by cities, and it will provide for more logical expansion of the cities within their spheres of influence. We could even include, actually, now that I'm looking at this, more logical expansion of the cities and special districts, probably should say. That letter D.
there again, doesn't that tie our hands again? I use, if the state can come in and say, put a school out there in the middle of prime ag land, and we gotta move the sphere out there. I mean, we can't, the state says we can't do it, and here, there again, we're trying to protect prime ag land. I mean,
That's, yep. That's why we'll have to have a full conversation about it.
Gotta be a future agenda item to look at.
well then, should this be deleted then? At the future items take care of this?
No, this is regarding the sphere of influence, so she had said just to add to the special districts, right?
But
Yeah.
that's part of what's gonna happen.
Well, in the future conversation that we have on a future agenda item, we will talk about all those exclusions that you were talking about, on the prime ag specifically
Okay.
relating to the school district, so it's not part of this.
That,
It's a different,
that means I have to remember this.
I'm sure
Okay.
you will. If not, one of us will remind you.
Okay.
Okay, and then 2.8.5, once again, another more definition to promote efficient and coordinated planning among the county's various agencies. City spheres shall not overlap, and districts that provide the same type of service should not have overlapping sphere boundaries. That's just good policy. Let's see here, 2.8.6, that when more than one agency could serve an area, the agency's services, capabilities, costs for providing services, and the desires of the affected community will be key factors in determining a sphere of influence, which could happen. 2.8.7, the commission will encourage the elimination or consolidation of small, single-purpose special districts when a more efficient alternative exists for providing the necessary services.
I've got a question on section 2.8.8, I believe, 2.8.8. Down at the last sentence, the commission shall adopt a sphere of influence. Can we change the word to may?
May and shall have two distinct,
Right.
possibilities, and you wanted to have wiggle room?
Oh, yeah, this one has to be shall.
I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, it has to be shall for this particular sentence, because the law requires that if you have a change of organization application, it has to be consistent with the sphere of influence. So what this is saying is that before the commission can approve a change of organization inconsistent with the adopted sphere of influence, the commission shall amend the sphere of influence. So it has to be consistent. So
Okay.
it could be.
Can I just ask a quick question? Maybe I've missed it in this section. Is there anything that we're putting in our policy that is holding special districts responsible for having spheres of influence, not just how we approve their sphere and what their sphere can and can't do, but in the formation of a district, they have to have a sphere, right? And that's part of the formation process. After they're formed, we know our special districts are so on top of all the things they have to do, and I love them all. Sometimes they forget not only maintaining their own boundaries and ensuring they have documentation of their boundaries, and boundary annexations are documented through LAFCO and recordation and all that, but also they have to maintain their spheres. Do we have anything that's kind of telling special districts that in the formation that the special district is responsible for maintaining their sphere? Because I don't feel like they do a very good job. No offense against our special districts. It's just a lot of work for some of these small ones.
Well, and I don't know that they're necessarily, I think the jurisdiction falls on LAFCO to ensure that they're
Like during an MSR?
conducting an MSR
They weren't
and
even-
updating the sphere of influence. However, it does bring up, and I'll have to read through again because of course I did these a few months ago, so remember a lot of detail, but that if a sphere amendment is necessary due to an application received by LAFCO, it will be the responsibility of the applicant to apply to LAFCO for that sphere amendment, for appropriate sphere of
Oh.
amendment.
Okay.
And that should definitely be made.
Yeah, it's just defining a little bit of the roles, whether it's the application process or what the district does. I just feel like we just need a little more understanding, and maybe that's a topic for another time. Maybe while we're at Cal LAFCO, we can chat a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm.
2.8, are we on 2.8.10? Is that where we're at now? Are we still?
Sorry, I just wanted to add that note
Oh,
here.
okay, no problem.
So I don't forget. Okay. We're talking about 2.8.8.
Yeah, 2.8.8. And then, okay, so now I read past, sorry. Got a little ahead of myself.
So 2.8.9. It's just that the commission will review the existing and future land uses of territory prior to including it within a city sphere in order to determine the logical extension of municipal services and the probable future boundary of a city or district. And that the commission will strongly encourage that all territory be included in the sphere of influence that's within the city's general plan. And each special district to address what, in its infrastructure, facilities, and operational planning documents. That's just the one. Sorry, hold on just a second. I'm going to start copying. So 2.8.10. Is that the city and county general plans will be significant factors in determining spheres of influence where a city's and the county's general plan for the same area are inconsistent. This is important. The commission should encourage the affected agencies to resolve any inconsistencies. In the event the inconsistency cannot be resolved by law, the final decision for the sphere of influence must remain with LAFCO.
That's a very powerful section.
Yes. Are we all okay with how it is worded?
As long as it meets the law, I'm good with it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. 2.8.11. The commission acknowledges that unincorporated islands are generally costly for the county government to serve and often have impacts on the surrounding city or district. Cities and special districts, where applicable, will be encouraged to annex unincorporated islands within their sphere of influence. And 2.8.12, proposals for urban development within a city's sphere of influence should first be considered for annexation to that city unless such annexation would create a leapfrog pattern of expansion with respect to existing city boundaries. And I had marked out 2.8.3 because I don't know that that necessarily needs to be under the sphere of influence section. But also, we've made it clear the requirements regarding the plan for services. And that would be a clear quantifiable mechanism to provide adequate services, right? And then 2.8.13 is just the removal of that reference to urban service areas. So there are a list of policies that I think that we still need to flesh out and add to this document. One is out-of-agency services, proposals, any extraterritorial services. 2 is agricultural mitigation policies or egg protection. 3 would be about island annexations. 4, service review policies. So while there's content in Cortese, not Hertzberg, about what content should be in the MSRs, the commission can choose whether they would like additional factors or determinations to be made in those MSRs.
I very much support that one.
And then 5 proposals affecting more than one county. This is just one that many LAFCOs have. I don't know that it's the most essential. You can put that at the bottom of the list.
Is that kind of like when it's a special district that goes over 2 or more counties and, okay, so it's like the Aromas Tri-County?
Right.
Okay.
Number 6 is indemnification. However, I do have to say that the governor signed SB 1209 that has empowered LAFCOs to require indemnification, which is amazing, and I'll talk about it a little bit more in my report. So I don't know that policies regarding indemnification are essential at this time. I wouldn't put it at the top of the priority list. These are less higher priorities. 7, though, I think that this is important, city-county development agreements and policies regarding those agreements. And this is particularly timely given the San Juan Batista's process right now to create an agreement with the county.
I'd like to recommend, because that I think that's great. We're in the process right now at the county, taking my hat off for a moment as a commissioner, looking at our process of having development agreements and what the rules are. So as the county moves forward, I'd really like you and maybe our council to have a conversation so that we're not starting down a path of doing something that LAFCO's not going to have potentially in a future policy, so that we can maybe catch it before it becomes a problem. That would be great. Okay.
And I'll move it for closer to the top of the list.
Jennifer, I've been on this commission a long time, and what we're talking about here in the handbook, in my recollection, well, I wasn't on the commission was Santana Ranch. Was for San Juan Oaks, was on the annexation of the roundabout, or whatever you want to call it there, that we annexed it into the city. The point that I'm trying to get at is, I don't know if folks have come, I use San Juan as an example. I know when Bill was here, he was over there talking to them about shrinking or expanding their sphere of influence, but it never came before this body. So at what point do you, as our executive officer, bring that to this board to make a decision or not?
So once we have for this fiscal year, we've funded the MSRs for both cities, and those MSRs have to be complete before we consider a sphere of influence update or change for either city. So first we have to do the sphere of influence, and it's being done in tandem with the city's process for coming up with an agreement with the county and deciding if that's their desire right now, or focus was to shrink it down to the size of the city limits. But they've been going back and forth. So we'll see what the outcome is. But once the MSR is complete and the city has an agreement in place, then they'll file an application with LAFCO for the change in the sphere of influence.
Yeah, and other times, it's come before this body, it's gone to both the city planning and maybe even the city council. It's gone before county planning, and I'm not sure if it went to the board or not, but, and then it comes to us, and it's kind of, can't use that word, I was told, but anyway, basically we were supposed to deny it, and that's what upsets the heck out of me sitting on this board. We should get involved way early in some of these issues, and then it comes to the end and we can get a lot of political backfire
Right.
or
Well,
comments.
the commission approved me taking part in the discussions with Samuel Batista, so I'm taking part in the conversation.
We're making a lot of rules, or LAFCO rules here in the handbook.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think that the planning departments of the three entities should know this backwards and forwards? Or at least come to our staff to say, hey, you can't do this unless you come to this body first,
Mm-hmm.
or get an approval from them.
Mm-hmm.
Just a question, can we put something in our handbook to take care of that too? I don't know.
Possible suggestion, maybe once we adopt our new policies and our handbook and everything, that we do a little educational tour and have some communication about what we've done all these updates, we've done all of these policy development, and we need everybody to be on the same page and be informed. So maybe that would be a way of addressing it. I'm all about talking.
Right. Especially since a lot of these, what's been added is we're just including the law in the policy where it was absent previously. So all of these edits are going to improve LAFCO's stance rather than dilute it.
Well, and another thing, I'm talking about the high school as an example, and man, to me, maybe they have been talking to you, have they? So, okay, so maybe I owe an apology to the folks out there because, at what point should it come to this body?
Well, they have provided me information, so they've been keeping me in the loop. But once the application comes to this body, I'm sorry, I am really choking up over here. Unless my mascara is running.
It's okay, the camera's not on you, so you're okay.
Good. Where were we?
Well,
So
before-
they should come to LAFCO, sorry, when they have an application in place is really, but they've been doing a very good job of keeping me informed, so far. And I'm certain that they, would not mind, presenting to the commission, if they were given the opportunity
Yeah,
about
but-
their project.
Maybe staff should inform us so that when we're doing face-to-face with the higher-ups, we don't get embarrassed. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to take my hat off for a minute and put my city hat back on, because in looking through the book, we talk about annexation into the city of islands, but I don't see anything about if the county is wanting to develop the islands instead of letting them be annexed into the city. And it kind of, there's conflicting zoning and issues for our general plan. Is there anything in the book about that? Is there something that can be done about that? Or do we, it just seems like it's kind of backwards, and I don't, it's like I thought LAFCO was supposed to encourage annexation to the city, not have it be developed by the county. No offense, guys. But it's a big issue for us, especially because high-density zoning is being planned in those spots, which is going to impact all around us, where there's already developed homes, where our traffic patterns are, all of it. So it's kind of a big deal. So I just wondered what your thoughts were.
Yeah, I think that should definitely be included under city-county development agreements, as well as under sphere of influence policies. We could certainly add, let me see what kind of wording I can find, but something about when there are developments within a city's sphere of influence, they're going through the county, the requirements to communicate with the city. There is already law about there needing to be discussions and an agreement in place when that occurs. But maybe we can clarify something or put it in here.
Yeah.
Let me talk with Josh too about that. But
Yeah, because that's actually being built into their housing element, so it's kind of a plan. And so, but I don't think there's been much discussion with the city yet about that, so.
And I think, to piggyback on that, I think, very clearly understanding, how, when a housing element or whatever is being updated from a general plan, regardless if it's the city or the county, that conflict part where they're conflicting zoning or they're conflicting in the agreement or not wanting to annex or whatever it is, I think there needs to be some clear guidelines about what LAFCO does and how we resolve that.
There's also the other piece of it, and maybe it can be under the development agreements as well, but county development standards are more relaxed than city standards. And one of the other things in the housing element was the idea of trying to redevelop some of the islands that already have development on them and having more relaxed standards, which I shudder to think what that even means. But it again, impacts the city. So maybe it could be under the development agreements or something as to anything developed within the city limits.
And we have started that conversation to get those standards within the sphere so that we aren't following county standards. So that conversation has started
Good.
at the,
That's
I've
good.
been working, David and I talked about that, and then I gave it to Henry, and Henry's working on it.
That's-
And actually, county council is also working on it.
So that could be both under the island annexations as well as the city-county development agreements, those issues, right?
Because I think when you're in, especially when you're within the sphere, we have to have an understanding of what takes precedence, and the county can't make assumptions. So I think LAFCO coming in and making very clear, rules on that for what's followed by, backed by law would be great.
Agreed.
But added notes for that in. At our next meeting, I will attempt to have, items for these top 4, I think, to start with. Possibly through service review policies, those might be fairly easy to see. So maybe 1 through 5 for us to have a conversation on. Yeah, if we get to it.
Don't overdo yourself.
Right.
How many years is it gonna take us to get through the handbook?
I think we're getting close.
We're almost near the end because we're looking at the strike-throughs, and the strike-throughs are only areas that have already been addressed in the other handbook that we have been working on. So
Right.
it's not like we have a lot more to do.
That was the end of substantial items in the policies book. Save for this very last page, which I didn't say we were gonna get to, but this, section 3.6, justification of proposal.
I just scanned through that, yes.
It's the only item that I did not remove or isn't under another section, and it just, that's it. That's the only thing sitting there. So somehow, I don't know quite where to put it. I'll have to think it through. But maybe under, the other factors or something under the annexation or change of organization applications or something. Maybe I can move it up as a subsection under there. Otherwise, the rest of these items, generally, fees we're removing. The resolutions we're removing, leaving, the CEQA information here as it existed, with the exception of that opening bit, but and that's it. So we've come to the end. So really it's just the list of 8 items that we have to talk about for next time. Hopefully 1 through 4 at our November meeting, and then we'll finish the rest at the December meeting. We'll attempt.
Thank you
And-
for all the work. I know this is a lot of work, but it is very much appreciated.
Leslie, are you still there?
I saw a nod.
She shakes her head yes.
I am. My computer keeps freezing though. Yeah, this is amazing. Do we have any other comments that we need to get through on this, or can we go to public comment?
Public comment, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're good to go to public.
If you'd like,
Okay.
if you'd like to make a comment in chambers, you can come up to the podium, and there's nobody on Zoom. No comments.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Thanks. This was amazing. Okay, 7.3, letter of support for Commissioner Currow for Calafo Board.
This was the letter the commission asked to be put together to express support for Commissioner Currow's nomination for the CalAFCO board to be sent to, I've put together a mailing list of all of the voting delegates from each one of the coastal LAFCOs, as well as the executive officers. So with your permission and the signature of the chair, I can go ahead and send this out. If you have anything you'd like edited, let me know.
Do we need a motion to approve the letter, approve the, I'm on the wrong item, but do we need anything that, a vote?
Yeah, I think we do.
Okay, then I move to approve, let me get back to this, item 7.3. I move to approve the letter of support for Commissioner Currow for the LAFCO board. I don't have the date in front of me, but
I'll second it.
Thank you. Commissioner Gonzalez and Commissioner Betancourt. Can I have a roll call, please? Do we have any public comment on this?
There's no public comment.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Betancourt,
Yes.
Commissioner Casey,
Yes.
Commissioner Currow,
Yes, with a big thank you. It was a very nice letter.
it was, wasn't it?
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Yes.
It's 5-0.
Thank you. LAFCO financials for fiscal year 24-25 Q1.
Okay, so I attempted something a little bit different this time. Included for your quarterly financial report were the invoices, first of all, that you had asked be included with our detail and other details. But in addition to that, instead of making use of the county's quarterly financial reporting system, I included what I use with my other LAFCOs because I think it's a little bit easier to read personally. And it's tracked by me for bookkeeping purposes. And I can compare it against the county's quarterly statements. But it gives you an idea of what was budgeted under each one of the budget items. It's the last 2 pages of the attachment. It's the shadow accounting. But it gives you an idea of what was budgeted, what's expended, and then what's remaining to date. And I think that this is more informative than the county quarterly statements that I was including previously. I can return to those easily. I would love to get feedback from the commission on your preference. But like I said, I feel as though this is much easier read if you're not an accountant or CPA.
Or work for the county for a really long time because you had to use those reports.
Exactly.
They're not my favorite either. I think this is great. My only question to you is if they haven't entered, if the county has not entered in the actual budget, so you can see remaining to be able to show that you're in sync with the county, please let me know and I will get on that again.
Okay. I'll do a double check, but I know that it was requested of me after I had already sent it when I attempted to invoice. So I'm certain that they have it.
Just needs to get in there, and then you can use this to be able to see if you're in sync, and if you're not in sync, we can work it. I just want to make sure that we're constantly watching the county report.
Well, and it's important because during the last time that I brought it to your attention, we were getting charged for a PO box, and I did get to the bottom of that it was inadvertently charged to LAFCO, and we don't have a PO box, so they had to change the charge to whatever
Exact
department
reasons
it
why.
was.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I wouldn't have known if I hadn't gone into any detail.
Did you need a motion on this one, or is it just FYI?
It's just FYI, unless you have a preference or feedback regarding the presentation, of the finances.
The only thing I would say is move your Excel to the front, because that's where I start, and then I look at your backup. That would be my only suggestion.
On the invoice for our attorney, it just has a current fee, current billing for the matter. I mean, was it one meeting or?
Sit on the back.
So it was specific to our September 12th meeting.
Mine is the legal.
So go to the
I
next.
was concerned about time that was spent, so if I pick a question for you as legal,
No, you've already, I think all of these invoices have already gone through you for signature, just a report. Have already gone through you for signature, just a report.
Okay.
And that we're all good with the current form, with the new format.
correct,
That you have, are we all good with that? Good with that? Okay.
with the suggestion for modification that you had asked for. Yes.
That it be brought to the front.
Right, bring it to the front, because that's the most important part.
Okay. Front.
Right, bring it to the front, because that's the most important part.
Okay.
Thank you. 7.5, consider purchase of a device for public member use.
Okay,
Jennifer?
So I've included a little bit of background on this item, that the public member does not receive a device of any kind similar to the city, or a touchscreen laptop would likely be less than this cost, with HP options starting at about $500. However, the iPad Air also has easy built-in voice controls. That's also one of those nice additions that would be helpful for accessibility. LAFCO has allocated $17,000 for contingency purposes, so it's fairly sizable, and for this fiscal year, and that could be used for these purposes if LAFCO approves it. So
I'm all for this, especially for an iPad. For me, ease of use. I don't know how the rest of you feel about Apple, but
My comment, Madam Chair, is the safety of Apple, because of anything that's dealing with HP or, that type of technology. You have to push out updates. There's so much that needs to be done. And Apple, with that care package, kind of is all encompassing and keeps it very safe. And for that purpose, I would recommend the Apple.
absolutely, I agree with that.
no, this is the HP, this is the county issued,
I agree.
HP.
iPads they're very reliable, so, and safety-wise as well, so.
And accessibility wise.
Mhm.
Old man,
Old man wise.
It's
Yeah.
much better than an HP, in my opinion.
okay.
I agree.
Well, that's coming from three very technically savvy individuals. And I personally, I'm not saying I'm an expert in the technical field, but I personally do not like Apple anything. And so he's been looking at my Surface Pro, that's county issued device, and I think we should let him look at the options, because I'm not Apple friendly user at all. And I've got both, even my county issued devices, my personal, they're exactly the same. But, and it might be difficult, but again, if that's your preference, that's your preference.
I don't have a clue.
What is your personal?
What's your phone?
Yeah, is your phone an Apple or is your phone a Android?
It's an Apple.
Okay, well then you're already familiar with it,
Yeah.
so yeah, so I
You're
would
already a
concur.
graduate.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very similar. It's all it is. What's great about it, it's like a big phone. It's
Okay.
the
Yep.
app movement, all of that. So it's very familiar. And if you are good with your phone, I think an Apple product would be great.
So what,
And Richard, that's what you've been looking at when I passed mine over to you, is a iPad.
yeah. I can do that, I think. With practice.
Okay.
Um,
I'll make.
Do we have any public comment on that?
No public comment.
Thank you.
Okay.
If there's no further discussion, can I call for a motion?
Yes, I was just about to do that, so I'll move to approve the purchase of the Apple iPad, Air, is it touch, as long as it's a touch screen, and then the use of contingency funds for staff recommendation.
I second that.
Thank you. Commissioner Gonzalez and Commissioner Casey. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Betancourt,
Yes.
Commissioner Casey,
Yes.
Commissioner Curro,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
5-0.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
So now I have a question. Will Jennifer, you'll make the purchase?
That's a good question.
So I think the easiest way would be if Commissioner Betancourt could make the purchase and then be reimbursed for it. The other option is, no, he says no, okay.
I'd rather not
I-
purchase it.
I can
I
purchase
wouldn't know
it.
what, oh,
I can purchase and then
okay,
you and I'll go shopping.
okay,
How's that?
There you go.
And then I will purchase and I'll ask for reimbursement.
okay.
Thank you, Elliot.
Absolutely fine. And like I said, this was just looking
but
at the Apple Store
she-
online, and I upgraded slightly in the memory. So it should be fairly comparable, I would think, in price, but
But she
including that-
charges $300 an hour to teach me. I'm
I did
just
not
kidding.
authorize that payment.
I am not a registered lobbyist.
So how do we do the Apple Care for that? It goes with the iPad.
Okay,
It's LAFCO. This is like
but
the
yeah,
first
it
piece
needs
of
to be
property
held
from
by
LAFCO.
LAFCO.
yeah,
I would say that it should go with the executive officer so that it can be transferred to any future public member.
I do too.
I agree.
Okay. Then I can make the purchase through my company and get reimbursed for it and leave it
Okay.
as,
Just add it to our bill.
yep. And then, let me look into what I need from you, to get it set up, because, if, I don't want it associated with my Apple account. I want
Right.
it to be associated with your Apple account.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wait.
I'll let you know.
Oh, does
Are you,
LAFCO have an Apple, does the county, does anybody have a LAFCO, have a, Apple account?
It's a really good question.
Because it's gonna have to be set up like that.
Is there a way to make a generic San Benito County LAFCO account?
what about the website?
It's different than that,
Oh,
unfortunately.
Yeah, we're gonna have to think about
We're
this.
gonna have to swim around this. We've approved the budget, but now let's kind
Yeah.
of swim around how we can make this so it is as generic as possible to San Benito LAFCO. I do not want to bring it to the county and have it get
Yeah, no, that gets,
messy.
Yeah, no.
yeah, because it'll have to have its own Apple ID and everything.
But we could try and make it generic for San Benito LAFCO. It could be
Yeah.
public, SBC LAFCO public, and that's the account. So it's not tied to a person.
Right.
So then,
Okay,
are
let's
you
figure
saying
that one out.
the best way to do that is binds all of us?
No, and this is so that, that it's generic for this one this one device. So it's not tied to you, it's not tied to us individually, it's not tied to Jennifer's company. It's generic. So I think there's a way to do it, and Jennifer, if you, as generic as possible for the public member. And so if we can just keep that as the theme, I think that's good enough.
Sounds good.
I'll concur because I don't know anything about Apple language and Apple accounting. Yeah, so.
Okay, thank you all for that. Seating of special districts on LAFCO, the Sunny Slope letter.
So I took part in Sunny Slope's last meeting because they were going to consider the resolution to join LAFCO. And I do have to say that to date, I've only received the 2 resolutions of support from the Romas Water District and from the RCD. Sunny Slope was considering it, but they had hesitation if the other major funders were not supportive. So they didn't want to be forcing any of those other major funders into a position that they're required to pay without having a conversation with them first. So they requested an extension to the deadline because we had put a deadline of October 1st as when we were requesting that the special districts send back those resolutions of support. They requested till the end of October. I'm requesting that it actually be the end of November. Just because I'm also going to be taking part in the, I always mess it up, intergovernmental committee?
Intergovernmental.
Meeting at the beginning of November. So I feel as though a conversation could be had at that time, at that meeting at the beginning of November. So it wouldn't serve any purpose just extending it to the end of October. So I would ask for at least till the end of November, giving those agencies an opportunity to hold meetings if they were so inclined.
So the extension wouldn't apply just to Sunny Slope, it would apply to all the other
All of
special districts? Okay, as long as it's fair and applicable to all of them.
And could we do a reminder, follow-up on these? Because I think it's an important enough, especially after doing a little more research on special districts and their membership. It's amazing how many LAFCOs really do have active participants from their special districts. I know you did your presentation on it, but after talking to the LAFCOs that have special district representation, it really changes the dialogue from the dais. And I think that is a conversation that they need, their voices could have an impact.
Yep, definitely. And that was another reason for the extension also, was that I think that there needs to be one more reminder sent out to give an opportunity to.
And then that November would give them the time to get it on their agendas and stuff, so I totally support that. Do you need a motion for that?
I think I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah, we do. Is there any other further discussion on that? No, any public comment?
There's no public comment.
Thank you, okay.
I make a motion to approve the extension per staff recommendations.
I second that. Oops, okay, I'll give it to Richard. Second.
Who's seconding it?
Richard.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bencourt.
Motion made by Commissioner Currow, seconded by Commissioner Betancourt. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Jordan.
Yes.
Commissioner Betancourt.
Yes.
Commissioner Casey.
Yes.
Commissioner Currow.
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Yes.
5-0.
Thank you. Executive Officer of Communications.
Realize I have something on here that I don't have pulled up. Hold on just a moment. Okay. So, SB 1209 I already mentioned. is the, 2-year effort by Cal LAFCO to get, LAFCOs empowered to require indemnification, which just means, relieving them of responsibility in the case of applications. San Luis Obispo had an issue a couple of years ago, and it was taken to court, and the court found that LAFCOs were not specifically empowered to require indemnification. So this new bill, SB 1209, provides that empowerment to LAFCOs, so we're back to being able to make that requirement as part of the application process. And then number 2 is Ledge Committee update. I think I mentioned last time that they are doing a reorganization effort of the Ledge Committee, which was not very well communicated to the executive officer community of all LAFCOs, and there was a lot of uproar and pushback because these major changes were made to how the legislative committee was going to be run. Actually, it was disbanded and decentralized is what occurred, without letting the executive officers know that it was upcoming. And the executive officers banded together and wrote a letter to the board asking for reconsideration, and a special meeting was held, and it was reconsidered, and the Ledge Committee is back up and running for the time being. So we'll see what happens from here on out. Number 3, Contra Costa has nominated an individual for the special district position. I actually think he's presently in this position, so I don't think that I think he's the incumbent. It's Contra Costa LAFCO Commissioner Mike McGill. He's running for a seat. He is a civil engineer. He's running for the special district seat. He serves on the Central Contra Costa Sanitary District Board. He worked with Contra Costa LAFCO as an applicant consultant in the early 80s, so he has quite a background in LAFCO. He was elected to Contra Costa LAFCO in 2011 and currently serves on the Cal LAFCO board and was elected to the board in 2012. He served as treasurer, secretary, vice chair, and chair. Twice chaired the Cal LAFCO Ad Hoc Finance Committee. Has served on the legislative committee since 2013. Attended Cal LAFCO conferences since appointed to LAFCO, and has attended many Cal LAFCO University classes. And then I also received in the mail today a letter from the competition.
And just so everybody knows, for full disclosure, I am friends with the competition. And so just so everybody knows, I purposely did not send my notice I spoke to her. I didn't send it to Monterey LAFCO, even though the executive officer of LAFCO knows us and very, knows my geekness of LAFCO. And so I know whoever is chosen at the conference, it'll be a great representative.
So, well, it's directed to you and to Elia as the voting members, so I will leave it to you to read.
Okay.
Okay, and that was it for my report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commission?
I just say vote for Curl, for all of you attending the conference.
I do want to again say thank you for your guys' nomination, but also that letter was really sweet. I mean, that was it. I blushed when I read the letter before the meeting. I was like, boy, this sounds like a really great person. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. So, And I did, just so everybody knows, it went out to all of the 12 except for Monterey because I didn't want to offend. And I have spoken to several people at the RCRC from R12. And I got, I think, out of the 10 counties, excluding us in Monterey, I've gotten a response from almost every county executive officer acknowledging my outreach.
If I may, we, or Commissioner Coro, you may be assuming that the incumbent will get a vote from the other LAFCO. So I don't see why you should not send it to LAFCO.
I believe she is the voting member. No,
they
she's
aren't.
not. Okay. Well, just so you, yeah, okay. I'll
Send it.
I will send. I just felt a little, yeah.
And as a reminder, you have to be physically present to be able to cast your vote. So just make sure those of you that are attending the conference that you attend the voting section. If I recall, it was in the first thing in the morning when.
It's on Thursday morning,
yes.
yeah.
So just make sure you're up and you're there for breakfast and you're able to cast your vote.
And if I remember correctly, there's a whole little spiel thing, so I'm working on my spiel right now.
As I said, vote for Curl.
Great, thank you. Any public comment?
That was our public comment.
There's not a public comment.
Commissioner announcements and requests for future agenda items. Yikes, sorry. Commissioner Casey?
No.
Thank you. Commissioner Curl?
I think our EO has enough on her plate, so I'm gonna just say no.
Thank you. Commissioner Bancourt?
I just got a question. What happened to the municipal service reviews?
It's with the staff of the various districts being reviewed by them and the cities.
Are we gonna get to those before the end of the year?
Yes.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I have nothing to add.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do not either.
Move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Who was second?
Gonzalez.
Thank you. Commissioner Betancourt, Commissioner Gonzalez, roll call?
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Betancourt,
Yes.
Commissioner Casey,
Yes.
Commissioner Curro,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
5-0.
Thank you. I appreciate you all allowing this remoteness.
Take care of yourself, okay?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Leslie, get better.
Thank you. All right, see y'all later. Thanks.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.